Dear all, a warm welcome to the NordicWay 2 Swedish showcase. My name is Magnus Hjelmdahl. I'm the acting group manager at the ITS and Traffic Systems group at Sweco. I'm also supporting the Swedish Transport Administration in management of the Swedish NordicWay 2 pilot, as well as supporting them in project management in the NordicWay 3 project. And I will be the moderator of this showcase today, together here with Sophie.
Thank you. And I'm Sophie Wennersten, Program Director for Drive Sweden, which is one of Sweden's 17 strategic innovation programs, focusing on the future mobility system for people and goods that are sustainable, safe, and accessible for all. And we provide a collaboration platform for academia, industry, society, and end users to collaborate. And today we are broadcasting from Lindholmen Science Park in Gothenburg, and we are very glad to be part of this event, since there are a lot of synergies between NordicWay and Drive Sweden, where Drive Sweden focus a lot on the system perspective. We work a lot with policy development, business models, society planning, end user involvement, and the digital infrastructure, where some of the ideas have also been taken further within NordicWay too.
Indeed. And if I just could get this clicker starting as well, we'll show you some slides. Very excellent, thank you. So, this is us. We're of course very happy to be here in this studio in Lindholmen in Gothenburg. The initial idea was of course to have this as a showcase, a live showcase before the summer. But then of course COVID-19 happened, as I guess all of you have heard about, which stopped the whole live event. And even though we are sad of course that we cannot see you all live here in Gothenburg, there is actually an upside as well. This showcase today, we have almost 400 people registered from Sweden, of course, but the Nordic countries, Europe, and actually all the way from Asia. So I think we could not have that kind of turnout in a live event. So there is an upside, and we're very happy for that. And the topic today is, of course, the NordicWay 2 event, and especially the Swedish pilot. And you will hear much more about that today. I'll just give you a short, very short introduction so you know what it is. NordicWay 2 is a collaboration between public and private partners in Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And it's co-financed by the European Union facility, the Connecting Europe Facility program. And we have a packed agenda for you here today. We will start this morning up to lunch with telling you the technical nitty-gritty details about all the pilots and the Swedish pilot at large. We will start with an introduction. We'll have an explanation of the architecture, and then we will go through all the services that we have piloted. And there will be presentations and lots of films. So have your popcorn ready if you haven't already done so. Then in the afternoon, we will look more on what's happening beyond NordicWay 2. And we'll focus on discussions within actors within NordicWay, and have discussions on the usefulness for a citizen and customer perspective. We'll have some discussion on the challenges for the platform for data exchange, and then we'll also have a discussion on the benefits and also challenges of cooperation and the kind of work we have in NordicWay. If we look a bit more detailed, in the morning we have presentations from Arne Lindeberg, who is the coordinator of the Swedish pilots. And then we have presentations from our technical and implementing bodies, the partners here, that will go through all the services. And then in the afternoon, we have these discussions with our also partners from the city and from the industry and from road authorities. So we're looking forward to that.
Yes, and some practical information as well before we get started. This event will be recorded and will be uploaded to the NordicWay website after this show here. And there is also a possibility, or I should say also that if you have colleagues problems joining, you can just go into the NordicWay website, and there will be a link that they can access the meeting. And there is also a possibility for you in the audience to ask questions to the speakers. And we really urge you to do so, because it's much more fun if it's a bit interactive. So you won't be able to see the questions, but we will see them, and we will bring them up, as many as we can, and have time for. So please write your name and or organization if you wish, or also your email. Yes.
Yes, I think that's all the practical details in the background. We're ready to start the show. So the first speaker of today is Mr. Arne Lindeberg from the Swedish Transport Administration. Arne is the senior advisor in ITS and freight transport, and he is coordinating the NordicWay 3 project, and he's also coordinating the Swedish part of the NordicWay 2 project, and he was also coordinating the Swedish part of the Nordic 1 project, so he's very familiar with the NordicWay concept. Welcome, Arne.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
We can hear you. Is everything okay up in Borlänge?
Yeah, a little bit sunny. It was a little bit snow on the ground this morning, so we are homing in for Christmas.
That looks very good.
Just a few weeks left. Okay.
Yeah. So, Arne, just an introduction to the NordicWay project, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. We'll see if the shift. I will then talk about, as Magnus and Sophie already have told you, we will today address this Swedish contribution to the NordicWay 2 project. Let's see if I have control now. Yes, it works. I'm amazed. You have already seen this slide. Basically, this is a coordination between the Nordic countries, and then there's a lot of partners within each country. I perhaps also should mention that we have shared the responsibility of coordinating the NordicWay project. So Finnish colleagues masterminded the start of NordicWay and also coordinate the first pilot. Norwegian colleagues coordinate NordicWay 2, and Sweden coordinate NordicWay 3. And this, of course, gives us a possibility to both share workload and also coordinate our efforts also on the European arena. And as you can see also slide, we are situated with the project along the main corridors and the capitals in Denmark, Finland, Sweden and Norway. But we also have some activities very far north, even far north of Sweden on the E8 road. Okay, this is actually my main slide to give you an introduction. What is this all about? The strategic approach is, if you're talking about CITS, it is really about a basic functionality in the transport system, the connected vehicle, because with the connected vehicle, you can facilitate a huge wide range of services, which will by time gradually become more complex and more advanced. Thus, we will have a substantial potential to improve transport system performance in terms of efficiency, environmental aspects, and traffic safety. This is, of course, a society or road administration approach, but or perspective, but it will also improve performance in also in the perspective of industry and person transport, mass, in terms of accessibility and reliability, and also to be able to see to that the road part of the transport system also performs in relation to modal shift. If we then go to the NordicWay approach, how do we, with, let's say, you saw our part in Europe on the map. The basic question was at an early stage, how is the strategic Nordic countries approach to this one? There was a lot of discussion on say, deployment of short-range roadside equipment, and we realized that this will not be an easy way to go for our countries. Therefore, masterminded, as I said, by our Finnish friends and especially Risto Kulmala, we ended up in a solution that we have to, for several reasons, try to rely on as far as possible, the cellular network was called long-range communication, meaning that we can avoid very costly investments. And if you look at the map, we have a quite extensive network, but it also, compared with if you do the traditional investment and let's say how far from the main city would we actually come, with this approach we also have the potential of a much better rural or road network coverage, and it also gives us I would say a better flexibility when it comes to system design. We also rely on the OEM, that's the car manufacturers, secure channel to the car, meaning also that with that approach we also have someone, so to say, on board in the car to facilitate for the driver. The main information exchange is done back end. You can say that information exchange in cloud environment, and this was a main let's say result also in already in the first part of the first NordicWay project. And of course, this is not religious. If you need short-range communication, we will use these case-specific solutions when necessary. And finally, what is very important is the project itself is a cross-border cooperation between our countries, meaning that this will also have a let's say importance for industrial partners, because we will provide let's say a more credible potential market also for industrial investments, and we can also cooperate together. We will also try to make good contributions to European friends, for example, within the C-Roads projects, where in the projects we already cooperate between our countries, and we can also in that arena share workload and coordinate our efforts. So this is the main result also from NordicWay 1, the idea on information exchange backend. And going from what we called in-change node to later in NordicWay to actually federate those and develop further also on in NordicWay 3, where we also together with European friends have started to specify these different types of into backend information exchange. And I will not go into detail. I will soon have used my minutes of fame, but these are the services you will hear more about today. And the cooperation between countries is really built on cooperation between transport and road administrations in the Nordic countries, and I will not embarrass myself trying to pronounce correctly the different names. And if we go down to the Swedish project, we have 13, let's say, either cities or industrial partners on board, or tech company. It's a little bit different character on the campus, but basically we have cities, tech companies, OEMs, car industry, and telecom industry on board in the project. Yeah, quite proud of this cooperation. And my final conclusion on cooperation, obviously together we are doing something correct, I would say, good. We were in NordicWay 1, we had 4 partners. In NordicWay 2, we are, as I said, 13, and we will be, because we are not totally finalized yet when it comes to contract and so on, but in NordicWay 3 we will be around 35 external partners. So this is an expanding cooperation. And that concludes my presentation, and I will give back, well, you don't have really the floor, but control to Magnus and Sophie. Thank you very much for me.
Thank you very much, Arne. Very interesting, and thank you for putting us in the right context of the NordicWay project. And you have, as you say, you are proud and you have the right to be, because it's a very strong partnership and very impressive to see also the increased interest now for the NordicWay 3 period coming up. And now we look much forward to hearing about the results from the Swedish sites. And Arne, you will be back at the end of the day, so we will see more of you then. So thank you, and moving on then to our next speaker. He comes from Ericsson, and it's Anders Fagerholt. Anders is a business development manager for connected vehicle and transport, and has been active in NordicWay 1 and NordicWay 2 and in Drive Sweden and in many other innovation projects. And he's going to talk about the architecture and the interchange service that functions as a foundation for all the NordicWay pilots, and also an enabler for the services that are developed. So listen very carefully, and warm welcome, Anders.
Thank you, and good morning. So about the architecture and the interchange node, the foundation for NordicWay ITS, it is to use cellular communication in most use cases, as Arne said, and that we have a number of service providers of different kinds, automotive OEMs, cities, the Swedish Transport Administration, and other service providers. And it is back-end cloud message exchange among all, and we keep the end users anonymous. They belong to the service provider. And it is a system where you publish and subscribe to messages in almost real time. So the latencies can be down to 50 milliseconds, sometimes 100, sometimes when we have a lot of signal processing, there is around half a second for the message transfer. But it's almost real time. The enablers that we use for achieving this is that we have, of course, the internet. We have the service providers' cloud connected vehicles and items like traffic light controllers for the cities, for instance. We use the advanced message queuing protocol, AMQP, to exchange the messages. And then we become payload agnostic, so we could transfer almost any agreed message. So we have used DATEX2 messages, and we can handle also the ETSI messages, the warning messages, denim and cam, the intersection and traffic light information, SPAT and MAP, and the signal priority messages for getting priority in a traffic light. And we have put a lot of work into this to get the European harmonization that we will implement in NordicWay 3 in C-Roads Task Force 4. And there we have collaborated with almost all countries and all ITS projects in C-Roads in Europe. So we kind of have a almost ready specification for this backend communication that is agreed upon, and that is available from C-Roads right now. The architecture then is that we have different service providers, OEMs, cities, road operators, and they are connected to an interchange, and that is an AMQP broker really. And all service providers, they have a client, and they are connected with what we call the basic interface in C-Roads language, which is the exchange of AMQP messages with ETSI and DATEX messages. So that's a data exchange. If we go to and then the interchange is serving a region or a country or something. But of course, we want to connect to all other countries as well. So there will be other interchange nodes, maybe a couple in the same country, maybe in different regions or whatever. And to automate this system, we have introduced a second interface called the improved interface. And this is what we in telecom call a control plane. So here you can do automatic service discovery, for instance. If there is a new service provider in Sweden that has new information, a new city maybe, that connects to the interchange, then the interchange will broadcast to all other interchanges a service discovery message, and then you could subscribe to these messages, or you could redirect directly to that city to get the information. In the films that are coming up now, you will see the message flow for the different use cases. So I think it will be, by lunchtime, you will have a very clear understanding on how this is working. And that was what I intended to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. Thank you for that interesting presentation and setting the scene for the architecture behind all the services we have piloted, as you said, that we'll see later on today. There is a question coming from the audience about the potential for scalability in this architecture, and how quickly can we scale up if we say we should go live with this and deploy? How quickly can we scale up this kind of architecture?
Well, that's scalable, immediately scalable, so to speak. I think the big issue is to have enough connected vehicles with the right clients in the vehicles. And also there is some work to connect the cities, for instance. So it's really the problem is really on the user side, get enough number of users. And as you might know, in Finland, they didn't build on automotive OEMs, they built on a smartphone application. And then, of course, if you have smartphones, you have, I mean, there's already at least one smartphone in every vehicle. So if we go for the smartphone way, it goes very fast. Question there is, though, if you would let people send in warning messages. I mean, if you have a vehicle, you can have a machine-generated warning, and that is supposed to be safe. But I mean, we all have kids who like to mess up things, and so that would be more of a broadcasting of messages and not getting messages from the traffic. So we prefer to have it by the OEMs and vehicles.
Okay, thank you. There is another question coming. I think we have time for that as well. It's from someone called Mats Wikström, who's asking which part is owning and managing the broker's backend infrastructure.
Yeah, that is an issue that we have not really solved yet, and I think Björn Selander will take up this in the afternoon, the way forward here. But it could be a lot of different business models, of course, but we haven't really settled that yet.
Indeed, and a bit of a spoiler alert for the afternoon, but the whole discussion on business models and ecosystems is, of course, a very big part of NordicWay 3. So thank you, Anders. Thank you for this presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will move on in the agenda. Clicker, please. And move on to the pilot presentations. And we now have a session with all the pilots presenting their progress and results. And we will start with the results on emergency vehicles approaching with Christian Jaldemark. And Christian Jaldemark is the head, let me just read so I don't say it wrong here, is the head of development at Camantha Automotive and has coordinated the NordicWay 2 activities for emergency vehicles warning. And Christian's actually joining us here live here in Gothenburg. So welcome, Christian.
Thank you very much.
I'll leave the clicker and floor to you.
Thank you. So, thank you for having me here. We are going to start with a film showing the tests and demonstrations that we have done in Gothenburg. So we'll start with that, and then I'll come back and present the results from the project. Thank you. So you have seen now the film that we recorded when we demonstrated and tested during the project here in Gothenburg. So now I'll talk a bit about more what we set up to do and what we aimed at doing here in the project was to set up services so that we alert the vehicles and the drivers about emergency vehicles before they can actually see or hear them coming. And the method we used to do this was to connect to the Swedish emergency response system to get emergency vehicle information, and from that create the standardized CITS messages for the vehicle OEMs, in this case Volvo Cars and Volvo Trucks, to use that in their vehicles and the backend clouds. And for technical validation, we have used the Gothenburg area, both for demo and test. And VTI has been a part here as well, has done some studies with simulators, which I will talk more about as well. We see that we have now tested the complete ecosystem that needs to be in place to provide a national emergency vehicle approaching service. And from a technical point of view, we see that the solution is validated. We of course has used standardized services for testing and validating, and a result from the project is also that we have had an extension for the DATEX2 standard approved by the DATEX2 organization. That's the emergency vehicle assignment information, which is published on the DATEX2 website, as you can also find a link here in the presentation. And we have done simulator studies on the effects of having those emergency vehicle approaching warnings out in the traffic system. So a bit more about the simulator study that VTI has performed, and they has also published this, so it's available. And again, we have a link in the presentation here, so it's available to read more about this later. And the method VTI used in this study was to have participants in the simulator and ambulances passing, and they were tested by having no warning messages, and also 2 different setups with warning messages displayed for the driver. Findings from this study shows that having warning messages for emergency response for emergency vehicles actually gave the result that drivers give way earlier for the emergency vehicles, and also that drivers learn to give way earlier even if they don't have the warning messages. And it also shows that for inexperienced drivers, it's even more important to have those kinds of warnings. And conclusion from this, which is very interesting, is that having those kinds of warnings actually proves to be beneficial for traffic safety and also for the response times of emergency vehicles on priority missions. And looking at the future work, we have identified here that continue to work with standardization and harmonization within EU and Europe is very important to make this a solution that works cross-border and so on. We have also seen that having this kind of system, we need to secure and being able to use the data from emergency vehicles in a way so that we can have those CITS services out for the public. And this is something that needs to be worked with more, and we will of course continue in NordicWay 3 also with those kinds of questions. It's very interesting also to see how the behavior of the drivers who actually receives the warnings affects also the traffic. So it's important not only to have the system with the CITS services, we also need to look at how do you behave when you receive warnings. And then looking into vehicles which gets more and more automated, the requirements are different, and that needs also to be looked into a bit more. We will continue also in that area, and to get a sustainable solution in place, we need to also look at the business models. So that's what we aim to do in the future here. So that concludes my talk. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian.
Thank you.
Very interesting. You also have some successful work going on within Drive Sweden, but we won't talk about that today, but just as a teaser.
Yeah.
But you mentioned some areas there going forward, and which one do you think would be most prioritized for you?
I think the combination is with working with access to data and privacy issues, also relating GDPR, combined with the business model, that is something that really needs to be in place to put this into a production environment in the future.
Mm-hmm. And what about NordicWay 3? Will there be some more actors joining your project? Yes. Yes.
There would be. So we are working on that right now, but we will see also more actors coming in, more OEMs, and this work will continue. And we hope that we could set up a national service for emergency vehicle approaching messages in that project.
Very good. We actually have a question also from the audience, from Frank Dimester from La Croix City. I think it's pronounced as that. Can this solution also be used for priority green traffic light management?
Yes, it can. And since we have the positions of the emergency vehicles and it's connected in this system together with the traffic light priority, this can be investigated further as well. And we plan to do that also in NordicWay 3. That's on the agenda to do that, yes.
Very good. So thank you very much, Christian, for this presentation. And
thank you.
I will welcome our next speaker. Actually, a very good bridge over to you, speaking about traffic
signals. Yes.
And this is Johan Östling from RISE, that has the role as a task leader for the services related to traffic signals. And he will now talk about the work that has been done within connected traffic signals. So
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. And I will do the same as Christian. We start with the film, and I will be assisted with the start, I hope. So in the meantime, I take a candy and lean back and just enjoy the film.
Green has the potential to provide more livable and sustainable cities. Time to Green supports drivers by visualizing countdown and enables connected vehicles to start up their engines right before the traffic signal turns green. This means that Time to Green could be used to achieve a smoother traffic flow and less emissions. Traffic signal predictions enable vehicles to become more energy efficient. And together with improved traffic flow, we can create a healthier environment. In the NordicWay 2 project, we have proven technical solutions for Time to Green.
Yeah. Okay. What you know have seen is the traffic light concept working in the, say, very first technical setup. And what is the next to do in this area? So far, we have done a lot, as you understood, about the technical part, and what remains is something we need to get through. So I have listed some down on the picture here that it's all about in the end that what is the impact and what is the value added for the cities, for the industry, and the society as such. Because if it doesn't mean anything for the citizen, it's no idea to implement these services. So during this next step, NordicWay 3, we will dig into that even more. As Arne said in the beginning, we need to elaborate those issues in a good order. And we think that should be also from a Nordic perspective, very interesting use case or work package, what we should call it. Next, we need to do is to see how the public transport and the CITS world will interact. We did some tests here with the bus priority, and that went very well. That need also to be developed even more. There are many areas that are similar in the CITS versus the public transport world. And then from a technical point of view, we need to get more deep in the technology to find out how these partners could collaborate even more. What data from the roadside and what data from the vehicle could even make 1 + 1 get 3 or 4 or 5, because we think there are many details that could be better for prediction and serve this time to green service, GLOSA service, etc., etc. So all in all, we need to make technical parts even more detailed, and we need to find out, does these CITS services add value for the society and the industry? That is my conclusion. Okay, that's what I find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. Very interesting to hear about this. There are questions coming in from the audience. There's one general that's asking about the films, and all the films are available both on the NordicWay homepage and they're also on the NordicWay YouTube channel. So if you want to see them over and over again, it's no problem. Just click into NordicWay. There's also a lot of questions coming in. As we said in the beginning, we might not have time to answer them all, but we will read them all and collect them all. And if you write your name and you also email, we might have a chance to come back to you after this. But we have a specific question to you, Johan.
Yes.
It looks like the display also shows how long the signal is green. Is this only the case after switching from red to green when the vehicle is close, or does it also apply for cars approaching a green light? I was worried of the risk of speeding to pass before turning red again.
Yes.
And this comes from Johan Hortberg at Rumble.
And that is a key issue, that what you're asking for here is that this question has been discussed a lot during the project, because as you said, this is a risk that people speed up instead of speed down or slow down a little bit when they approach in the intersection. And yes, we have that in our case, and that need to be elaborated even more in the next, because it's there and there is no clear answer yet. But we cannot say red to light, time to red is a tricky issue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's also another question coming in, more generic level, with no name on it. What are the barriers and which are the drivers to implement this?
Yes, good question. As you say, sometimes you say it needs 2 for tango, but in this case, it's at least 5 or 6 partners or stakeholders involved, from the service providers, from the city, from the road authorities, from the industry, and from, of course, the users in the end. So we find out that what I said, if all these stakeholders work together, we can get an impact. But who will start? Should we start to just deploy time to green and then wait that the industry pick it up, or the other way around? I think this project is a very good start to dig into this question and get an answer. For sure, there's many involved. It's not only 2, many stakeholders involved to get it happen.
And indeed, as you said, one of the aims of this project is to lift all the stones and try out and see answers in a more non-deployed manner, which means that you can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Johan. Then we're moving on in the schedule.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll talk about dynamic access control of designated infrastructure. And it's my colleague Thomas Sjöström who will present this. And Thomas is joining us from Stockholm, or I think Vallentuna even, outside Stockholm. So Thomas Sjöström is a consultant at Sweco, and he's a project manager within urban mobility in Smart City Sweco, and a task leader for the task access control. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And you know, great show you're performing in Gothenburg. Well done. So before we start the movie, I'll just to say welcome you all to learn what we have achieved by watching the video, and welcome to realize the future potential. And just to provide some context and background, is that high accessibility is necessary for a positive development in big cities. And in the coming decades, the population of the Swedish urban areas is expected to increase, leading to greater traffic volumes for both freight and passenger traffic. So in order to avoid costly infrastructure investments, we explore alternative ways of effectively using existing road infrastructure. So we have partners in the project. We have the Swedish Transport Administration for the Road Authority, and we have the Technolution, who's the provider of the software to support traffic management. And we have Scania, who provided the test track and the onboard unit for the test. And also Closer participated as initial task leader, and Sweco is now the current task leader. And I would like to extend my gratitude to Technolution and Scania for excellent work done in a positive problem-solving atmosphere during the action presentation that resulted in this movie. So please start the movie.
As there will be very limited room for major road constructions in the future, we will need to make better use of the existing road infrastructure. Dynamic traffic management will be part of the solution. Unused capacity can be found in the public transport lane, therefore it is of interest to look at how a traffic management center in real time, safely and dynamically could allow or deny prioritized vehicles to use it.
So I'm trying. Okay. So the objective and really what we did is that we demonstrated a service that enabled better use of existing infrastructure with active steering and control of traffic in urban areas according to the so-called four-step principle. And the functionality basically is a test track driving on E4 in Stockholm on a 3.1 kilometer road stretch, requested access by cellular networks to use the bus lane. A traffic operator, a stand-in for the demo, granted or could deny access depending on traffic conditions or vehicle characteristics. And in order to perform this demonstration, we did need special permissions from local authorities. And really, a lot of traffic would help to tell the story and to evaluate the service. The need of the service is really during rush hour, but the permission did really not allow testing during that time. The future potential, technically, the vehicles, the infrastructure, and the software is now ready for the service. And in a real implementation, a database must be created to manage the road and the geofence information. And we do foresee a fully automated system for the traffic management to manage all the incoming requests. Also, the system should have a predefined rules to grant or deny a vehicle's access to the bus lane. And these rules should be based on a road owner's transport policies or strategies. And further development is to explore these preconditions to enter a bus lane, or perhaps to allow any vehicle into a special dedicated lane. And really, it's a powerful tool, and the full potential is a complete redesign of the traffic management, enabling a variety of functions and services. For example, a transport planning tool to enable, or you could say force drivers to follow granting rules for access. And the traffic flow could improve in the geofenced lanes, which in turn could attract new vehicles as drivers recognize the benefit of being granted access. There's also the possibility to create flexible streets with different use of different time, both daily and season, depending on the city need. And also a future upcoming service might be to grant access using the same functionality as this service to access lanes for electrical road charging. And really, this request response is one way to solve access control, but it's also possible to solve access to lanes. And by using advanced dynamic geofencing, a traffic center could open up or close lanes for a group of vehicles depending on the current traffic situation without explicit request from one specific vehicle. So that's pretty much what I would like to present now. And we also have a report from the demonstration available for download on the NordicWay website, should you learn more details. So over to you, Gothenburg.
Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting and very nice to see a movie about the test as well. I just wonder, how has the interest been? I mean, you said there was a great work done together in the consortium and so on, but what about other stakeholders that you have talked about this project about? I'm thinking about, for example, public transport authorities, or as an example.
Yeah, I mean, there's a high interest, of course, between the members in the task force, but also it's an interest from the surrounding actors. And evidence of that, we had a workshop for a few months ago, and there was a lot of interest from many actors. And really, I have to say, this demonstration is kind of a stepwise approach, because a long time ago, a few years ago, there was a pre-study about this idea. And then the pre-study was scaled up to larger pre-study, and now we demonstrated that this works in real life. So I like the stepwise approach towards possible implementation.
Definitely. It's not so easy just to go out and do it.
No.
What about the, you talked a little bit about the potential and so on, but seeing from a larger system perspective, I think we have a question about also the workload on traffic management centers from Torgeir at NPRA.
Yeah, I mean, really, we do foresee this will be a fully automated process in a real life implementation. It's not reasonable that the traffic operator could individually manage specific requests from individual vehicles. But, you know, for a demo, we did it, but in a real life implementation, we foresee a fully automated system.
Connected perhaps a bit to that, a question from Peter Wessel at Iterio. Have you thought anything about using AI for granting access for different classes of users?
I think that's a good way moving forward to do that. That's very interesting. And also, I think this service kind of demonstrates we are taking a big step towards new mobility services. So I think a good idea is to further build upon the experience from this demonstration to explore new services based on the same functionality as this service.
Great. Yeah, very many good ideas also for the future we can hear. And by that, we thank you very much, Thomas from Stockholm. And move over to the next speaker, which is actually, I think, only across the river here in Gothenburg. It's time for the city of Gothenburg and Mikael Ivari, who will enter the digital stage. In his role as a senior advisor, he works with developing the agenda of the Urban Transport Administration within the field of connected automated vehicles. And Mikael will present the work on dynamic environmental zones. So do we have Mikael with us?
Yes.
There you are. Yes.
Thank you
Hello.
very much for your kind introduction, Sophie. Yes, I'm just situated just across the river. And I will do as previous speakers have done. I will start by introducing our service by showing a short movie. So if you please roll the movie.
Geofencing has the potential to provide more sustainable mobility, thus more livable cities. Geofencing ensures that hybrids run on electric mode. Geofencing could therefore be used to reduce air pollution in areas or at times where the air quality is especially bad. By ensuring that hybrids run on electrical mode, we can be sure that noise is eliminated in sensitive areas or during night time. In the NordicWay 2 project, we have proven technical solutions for geofence.
Thank you very much. So now I hope you can see my screen and hear me talking, and I hope you have a good idea of what this service is about. I will now present to you a complementary perspective on this by starting with introducing the partners providing this service, participating in the pilot, that they are, except for the city of Gothenburg, also Ericsson, Volvo Cars, and Technolution. And these are some of the persons involved in making the movie and also making the service available for providing the whole of the pilot. These are some screenshots from the making of the movie behind the scenes. I will start by looking at the service from a technical perspective, and that is evaluating the service from a technical perspective. As you see from the film, the dynamic environmental zone service is not time critical in its essence. This is because the driver needs to be able to respond and adapt to the regulation imposed by the regulative body. Even though we have measured a round trip latency of 10 seconds between the change of the graphical unit interface in the vehicle and the actual response in the car, which is more than acceptable. When it comes to the service ecosystem setup, it's important to understand that this is policy dependent. This means that roles and responsibilities will vary with the setup of the service. The service can be set up in a regulatory or a voluntary way, and it can include incentives or not include incentives. In Sweden, the legal framework for environmental zones does not include plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, which means that a regulatory approach is not possible. Though other incentive-based approaches are fully possible, and they can be with or without the participation of road authorities, for instance, making use of fleet management systems. And these are services that are actually implemented in several cases in Gothenburg at the moment. So what have we learned from the pilot? We know and have learned that cloud solutions work fine, but robustness must be secured before implementing the service. Common integration tests have been performed during the pilot, and these tests are important and they have really improved the project results. The data flow includes only the status of the zones and thus includes no privacy-related information, which makes this very easy to comply with GDPR. Then we thought of including reporting back mechanism in the pilot, but we decided not to try that out since we had no incentives implemented in this service. But that's fully possible to extend the service with implementing different types of incentives. And then, of course, you need a reporting back mechanism to ensure that you really approve for the incentives provided. So when looking at future possibilities and future challenges, we must see also looking at CITS in a broader perspective, I believe, that is CITS services provide the incremental way for providing eventually the transportations of the system of the future, which includes connected and automated vehicles. And I look at geofencing as a very interesting method for road authorities to provide digital and dynamic traffic regulation, and I think it's worth more investigation. We have learned and proved that different implementation policies can be used for dealing with, for instance, low emission zones. Then we believe there needs to be more research and development conducted when it comes to combining existing static geofences with dynamic elements. With that, I mean, we could use Internet of Things for providing input to the service in order to enable a more precise and efficient regulation. For instance, if we know that the conditions for noise emissions or other types of emissions need the use of implementing a new type of regulation, that could be perceived by using Internet of Things. So I will conclude with that, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Michael. Very interesting presentation. There's some questions coming from the audience. So the first one is about the current geofence solution. It's from Steve Phillips. Does the current geofence solution only consider forcing electric mode, or can it also force speed reductions?
It could for sure be used for enforcing speed reductions. And we have proven that in the city of Gothenburg in other pilots, and also we have that already rolling on our bus line 55, which runs in the city of Gothenburg. It has speed restriction imposed by geofencing, yes.
Okay, so technically it's no problem. Another question from unknown, is a bit technical question. Where do you see the processing of geofencing being done, considering a huge amount of vehicles? Very technical question.
Yeah. I don't think this is doesn't require a lot of processing power. I think if we want to use geofencing in a regulatory way, in a more mandatory approach, then of course authorities like the city of Gothenburg has a certain role to play there. And as we showed in this pilot, we set up a subscription service, and then of course it's open to subscribe to. So it's not much processing needed at all. Then it's about how it's implemented in the vehicles and how the vehicles and drivers adapt to it. And then you're into more legal discussions.
Indeed, so it's not just a technical question. I think there's another question coming in as well. Yes, from Per Nilsson. I didn't catch the legal framework. The plug-in hybrid electric vehicle concept shown is illegal in Sweden. What about pure BEV, which is...
No, yeah, it's not illegal. It's just that the legislation does not contain plug-in hybrid electric vehicles when it comes to cars. It does include when it comes to heavy good vehicles. So that's the reason why we cannot use a regulatory approach in that sense. Yes. Yeah, and please, I forgot the second part of the question. If you repeat the question, Magnus.
It says, what about pure BEV? I'm not sure what BEV actually stands for.
Yeah, battery electric vehicles, yes. Of course, when they are pure battery electric vehicles, then there is really no need for this service, because then you already run on electric mode all the time. But it could be interesting for other types of services. For instance, speed management, access control, and so on.
So on. Indeed. Thank you, Michael. I think that's all the questions we have time for in this part. Moving on in the schedule and start talking about roadworks warning.
Thank you.
And then I will go a bit further than across the river. We'll go all the way to Vienna and introduce Alexander Payer from CAPS. Alexander Payer received a PhD degree at the Institute of Telecommunication from Vienna University in Austria in 2010. And since 2011, he's employed at CAPS Trafficom, Vienna, Austria, and his functions are system solution design and technical project management in the field of CITS V2X. Welcome, Alexander.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Magnus. Welcome to everybody. Yeah, and
please go ahead.
thank you very much. Yeah, and as usual, as we did it now for all the other use cases, we are starting now with the movie, in this case for roadworks warning, and I would like to ask for starting the movie now.
It's important to participate in NordicWay and the roadwork warning project. Traffic has increased, so has stress and congestions. Connected roadwork provides the opportunity to inform about upcoming roadworks in real time, which provides increased safety for road users and a safer working environment for those who have the road as their workplace. This means that the driver, or in the future a vehicle, can regulate and maneuver past the roadwork zone in a safer and more efficient manner. Information about the length of the work zone, closed file, speed restrictions can be linked to the specific roadwork. This project is one of the practical cases with the potential to be deployed on a broader scale, both on local roads and on national roads and highways. We are now beginning to plan for implementation of regulations and to start necessary dialogue with the involved parties, for example, our contractors. NordicWay is a collaboration between the Nordic countries and the involved industry. Since traffic and contractors work across the national borders, it's important to work together. The NordicWay project has shown the opportunity to share information about planned roadworks, emergency works and other forms of interference.
Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed the video now. And I will give you now some further information about the roadworks warning use case. So my presentation is separated in two parts. The first part is what already happened, so what was part of the project, some details about this. And then in the second part, there will be an outlook about the future, what are possibilities, and what are maybe also open issues for the roadworks warning use case. So starting with the project, starting with some basic information. So the overall content of the roadworks warning message is that overall, of course, that it's a roadworks warning. Then there is also the roadworks position included. further a trace which is leading to this position, which is important for the vehicles in order to map on this event. And then there is also the traffic flow rule included. So if you have to pass on the right or left side of this closed line where the roadworks vehicle is parked, you can see this also in the picture on the right side with the roadworks traffic sign included with this traffic flow rule. In this case, you have to pass it on the left side. So as you could see it already in the video, the traffic or the flow of the messages of the warnings is also depicted here in the picture on the bottom side. And on the top of this picture, you can see that beside the basic information from the roadworks vehicle, there is also planned roadworks information from the Swedish Transport Administration towards the interchange node. So the overall architecture was also already explained in the first presentation by Anders. And this information of the planned roadworks is also provided to the OEM cloud. I think what is very important for this roadworks warning use case is that there is no manual, no human interaction required on the roadworks side, on the roadworks location. So when the roadworks vehicle is placed there and is activated by moving down this attenuator, then the roadworks warning unit, which is mounted on this roadworks vehicle, is directly activated and sending then the messages towards the vehicles directly and also to the interchange node. So these two communication lines are also showing that it's a true hybrid solution. So on the one hand side, we are using short range communication, which is done via ETSI ITSG5, and we are using also long range communication via cellular, and this is done via the interchange node. For the message formats, we are using them, so the ETSI ITSG5 messages for short range, and for the long range communication, we are using additionally also DATEX2. Further information about the project. So this use case makes already sense when one single vehicle is equipped with a CITS onboard unit, because each vehicle is warned of the roadworks when it has a V2X equipment inside the vehicle, and this is then saving lives. What I want to mention is that it was a very good cooperation between the OEMs, system vendors, and also the authorities in the project, which was also important to realize everything. Brings me already to the important tasks. So this coordination between the roadworks warning generator and the roadworks warning consumer then in the vehicle, especially regarding the services, data formats, message management, so everything what is required in order to make an end-to-end system. So this was very important, was working very well. And then also, which was, not so easy, a little bit difficult at the beginning, but worked also quite fine, the coordination with the truck-mounted attenuator vehicle subcontractors. So these truck-mounted attenuator vehicles are also, this is called the roadworks warning or roadworks vehicles. And the installation of the roadworks warning unit has to be coordinated with them. You can see this also in the pictures below. It's quite a big trailer in this case with a big traffic sign, and then when we zoom in, we can see also the roadworks warning unit there with the black antenna also. And this brings me also directly to the regulations, what is important. And on the next slide, this working. Yeah, so this is now the outlook, what's next. And as mentioned before, the regulations are very important. So it would be important to produce specifications for procurement for such road service vehicles, truck-mounted vehicles, however you want to call it, especially with the equipment of CATS. And this has to be done on a common level, on a national level, and on a city level. This also brings up the question, how can national road operators and cities work together? As we could see now also in the other use cases, there could be also a combination of use cases, for example, with the hazardous location notification use case, or with the geofence use case. Both of them, as the roadworks warning users are using this message format them when they are in this case. So there could be a possible combination of it. What was a learning from the project? Currently, it's state of the art that there is a cloud-based solution where all these digital signs, which are shown on this traffic sign on the back of this roadworks vehicle, they are produced in this cloud-based solution, and this information, this content of this cloud could already also be used for producing CITS messages. Then there is also the potential to improve the interpretation of the information in the vehicle. So currently, what we were showing is that the roadworks vehicle, you can see it in the picture on the bottom there with the arrow, so the one in the middle is currently shown in the receiving vehicle on the display. Of course, there could be also the further information when there is a pre-warner parked, which you can see also in the picture on the bottom, that this information is also shown to the driver in the vehicle. So there are further possibilities to improve this interpretation of the information in the vehicle. And there is also a possibility to enrich the data of roadworks. As mentioned before, there is also planned roadworks warning data sent from the Swedish Transport Administration to the interchange node and to the OEM clouds. And the current information in the roadworks warning message, which was presented in the beginning here, could be enriched with also speed limit, which lines are closed, and also the extension of the roadworks. And these all are possibilities for the future project in NordicWay 3. Good, this was the end of my presentation, and I would like to hand over back to Magnus and Sophie.
Thank you, Alexander. Very good presentation. We have a question coming in from the audience from Johan Hortberg at Ramboll. He's asking a technical question as well. Will the system work for roadworks in a long tunnel too, e.g. when there is a need to close a lane in a tunnel?
Overall, I would say yes. I think the big problem in tunnels is that you don't have GPS information there. So when I think quite quickly now, if the roadworks is starting out of the tunnel, then it's no problem to be warned from or about the roadworks. If it's really starting somewhere inside the tunnel, then you have to improve it somehow. That's beginning that the vehicle knows its own position, and also, of course, the roadworks unit, which will be placed then inside the tunnel, that it has also this information about the position, but also about the time synchronization is the other big point in this case.
Okay, thank you. There's another question. I think we have time for that as well. Last question from Torgeir Wahl at Norwegian Public Roads Administration. And he's asking, have you looked into mobile roadworks?
Yes. So this is a very good question. This is also part of the overall C-Roads initiative. And our approach, which we have here now with this stationary standalone roadworks warning, is also usable for mobile roadworks. So as mentioned in the presentation, when the roadworks vehicle is activated, then also the roadworks warning unit is activating and transmitting messages. And if it's starting to moving, then you have the event, the roadworks position as a moving point there, but the same concept can be used for mobile roadworks.
Thank you, Alexander. Very interesting.
And then I think it's time for us to say thank you to all the speakers actually this morning, and to the audience that have been very active actually in this first session.
Indeed.
Because now there will be time for a lunch break until 1 o'clock. But first, a little teaser for the afternoon.
Yes, what's up next? So this morning we heard about the technical implementation and the services we have piloted. In the afternoon we have more discussions on how to take this further, what's the next steps, and from various stakeholders that has been part of NordicWay 2 to see what have we learned from this, how can we cooperate in the future, and so on. So I think we'll have some really interesting presentations and discussions this afternoon. So I hope to see you all back then.
Welcome back. to the Nordic Way seminar. We hope that you have had a very good lunch and something good to eat, and perhaps time to do some emailing and phone calling, etc. We are very eager to get started again for the afternoon session, and we've heard this morning about the technical solution and pilots that have been taking place within NordicWay 2, and now it's time to take a little bit of another perspective, the one from the societies and users, business models, roles and responsibilities, and the need for collaboration. So Magnus, the agenda.
Yes, the agenda. So the focus of this afternoon is a bit less technical than this morning. We try to broaden the perspectives a bit, look at the bigger picture. And the setup is that we will have 3 different topics to discuss with different stakeholders from the NordicWay project. And in each session, the panelists will start with making an opening statement. And after that, we will have a discussion with all the panelists within that session. So the focus now is more on the big picture, but it's also more focused on interaction. So we need the support of the audience now. You need to send in your question during the panelists' speeches so we can have them as a discussion point later on. So that's the idea. Are we ready to kick off the second half?
I think we should kick it off. And the first panel, as you see, will focus then on usefulness of services from a public perspective. So we will welcome 2 people, which is Christina Bäck-Jensen and Stina Karlsson. And we will start with Christina. There she is. Warm welcome. Christina Bäck-Jensen is a project manager at the Urban Transport Administration in the city of Gothenburg. So also on the other side of the river again. She's responsible for a connected traffic signal project in Gothenburg in collaboration with NordicWay 2, and will also be part of the NordicWay 3. So warm welcome, and you will start off this by giving us a little bit of a speech, and then we'll hear from Stina.
I don't see my slides. Am I supposed to see them now?
They are supposed to be up in just a second. Here they are. Do you see them now?
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christina Bäck-Jensen, and I work for the Urban Transport Administration in the city of Gothenburg as a project manager. And I've been project managing a project called Connected Traffic Signals in Gothenburg for the last 2 years in collaboration with NordicWay 2. And I will share with you today our findings in this project, and also what challenges we can see in the future. And now I can see that I forgot to change to my shirt. I apologize for that. Okay. Let's see if this works now then. Okay, can you see my slide of the pretty city? I believe that's a yes. I would like to start off by explaining why the Gothenburg city is participating in this project. As you know, we own a lot of infrastructure in the city. And that also includes the traffic signals. We own more than 80% of the traffic signals. And since the vehicle industry needs the traffic signal data to optimize their autonomous cars, we become quite a natural partner in this context. We also do want to offer Gothenburg as a test site. We have a history of doing this actually in a lot of collaborative projects. We have worked with both academy and the vehicle industry on the other side of the river, which has been very convenient and interesting. And we intend to do this, to collaborate with them. We also think it's very important to participate in this kind of projects, to be able to influence the digitalization of the city. And we prefer to be proactive rather than reactive. And our main responsibility is actually to safeguard a sustainable and livable city. So we need to participate It's our responsibility. So let's move on to our findings of the project. We believe that collaboration is a success factor in socio-technical developments. We all need to collaborate: the road authorities, the cities, the vehicle industry, the service providers, and the academy. And when we collaborate, we achieve perspective awareness, which is also extremely important. Of course, you can say that stakeholders may have different objectives and possibilities sometimes, but quite often we also see synergies. Like the example I have here, the decreased fuel consumption and the decreased number of starts and stops. That's goals, some of them, for the vehicle industry. But they also lead to decreased emissions, a healthier environment, and a smooth traffic flow. We can also see that different products sometimes have the same purpose. The vehicle industry, they are developing airbags for saving lives, and the road authorities, the cities are more interested in energy absorbing barriers for saving lives, barriers on the road, I mean. And these both initiatives are saving lives. So it's the same purpose, actually, different products. And I would like to complete that last one with that it's not so hard to understand that collaboration probably enables optimization of these two, of the airbags and the barriers. We have also seen that it's a fact, as a matter of fact, that different technical solutions are not always working in all cities or in all areas. One example is the GLOSA function, the green light optimized system advisory that you saw in the Gothenburg video. It's a great function in the right place. In cities or areas with fixed time traffic signals, it works perfectly well. But it's not as useful in activated systems, where the traffic signals are programmed to prioritize public transports. So we need to look at the city and what infrastructure and political situation do we have. And all these things, it proves how important it is to work together, that we actually have a dialogue and bring in different perspectives when developing socio-technical functions. Next finding is about vehicle probe data. The city thinks that if we could access, I should explain what the vehicle probe data first, maybe, if somebody doesn't know what that is. That is vehicle generated data about vehicles on the road, about road conditions, about traffic situations. And we think that if we could access some of that data, for instance, queue lengths, speed, position, several connected intersections, things like that, we could optimize our traffic signals a lot. The third finding is about terms and conditions related to the NordicWay 2 project, the rules of the project, so to say. What I want to say with this one is that a financial compensation is very important for the cities. Why? Of course, it's important for everyone, maybe, but the cities, they usually have budgets only for operation and maintenance. They also get budgets for investment sometimes, but hardly ever for developments. So if we want the cities to participate in these kind of projects, they need to have financial compensation for it. Otherwise, it's almost impossible for us to participate. And NordicWay 2 has enabled this possibility for us. So I think it's great. We would like more cities to join us. We need you. So please, get in touch. Another thing that is very important for the cities is that the project is able to keep a sustainable perspective. And then I'm talking about open standards, independent solutions, software separated from hardware, things like that. It is extremely important because we need to stick to these things from a political reason. And the fourth findings, the last one, is about that we need to have large-scale demonstrations to be able to evaluate the benefits of NordicWay 2. We need this to be able to prepare for the future. It's necessary. So the last slide is about the future challenges we see. And one major question is, how do we create a transparent and safe environment where both authorities and OEMs data can be shared? OEMs means the vehicle industry, if somebody doesn't know. This is a tricky question. In this project, you can see the picture below. It looks like that's what it looks like in the project. It's quite easy because we don't have to think about what it should look like in production, in real life. But how should it look like in real life? That's what we need to get into now. We have proven the technical solutions. Now we need to prove how we can work with these things. So there are questions related to the business model, the responsibility. Who should, if you look at the chain below, from the traffic signals all the way to the OEM clouds, the vehicle clouds, who should be responsible for what in this chain? It's not an easy question to answer, and we don't have the answers yet. But we need to work them out in NordicWay 3, I hope. And who should have access to the data we produce? Everyone? Also a question we need to answer. And how is the solution financed? Very important question as well. There are also questions related to the technical solution. Questions like, what requirements should we have on latency? Is it enough with a prediction that comes within half a second or whatever? We need to decide that. What requirements do we have on latency and predictions? And what kind of APIs do we need to connect to the system? And finally, how can we secure, how can we protect ourselves from hacking and from personal encroachment in this system? Who is responsible for that? And another question, can technical requirements be defined before the business model is decided? That's another question we need to answer. So a lot of questions that I hope we will continue with in NordicWay 3. And I welcome more cities to join us. Thank you very much. That's all for me.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for that introduction from the city perspective. We'll now continue with a short introduction from the vehicle operator's side. So you have a few minutes to go change your shirt if you want to.
Thank you.
And we'll see you back in a couple of minutes. And meanwhile, I welcome Stina Karlsson, who has been with Volvo Car Corporation for many years and is a research product leader at the Department of Safe Vehicle Automation. You will give us an opening statement from Volvo side. Please, Stina, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just make my what happened now? Do you see? Yes. So now I think I'm in control of the slideshow also. Yes, when Volvo Cars entered this project, our goal was to increase traffic safety and reduce environmental impact with the use of cellular network CITS systems. It's quite bold
target, but question is how we done this? Well, as you learned in the morning, we together in the project have demonstrated several CITS services in a production-like system solution. And yes, we believe that these services may increase traffic safety and reduce environmental impact. Starting with emergency vehicle alert, where VTI has made a simulator study that showed benefits of this service. It made drivers give way earlier and supported inexperienced drivers to give way. The conclusion was that it's beneficial for traffic safety and for enabling time-efficient emergency transports. When it comes to the other functions, we do not yet have any simulator studies to back up the effect. But we believe that, for instance, if we, with roadworks warning, can give an alert in good time before a roadwork, we support the driver and thereby reduce the risk of accidents. Then we have use cases that may reduce environmental impact. Environmental geofence for hybrid vehicles that clearly support zero emission zones for individuals and cities. Predictive engine control that, based on traffic light information, can reduce fuel consumption and emissions and also support a smoother traffic flow. And time to green that support the driver and contribute to a smoother traffic flow. What are the findings from the project? The NordicWay 2 project has facilitated a dialogue and collaboration between the different actors in a triple helix manner. Road authorities, industry, and research institutes have come together to discuss and work on the possibilities with the CITS services. By focusing on a few defined use cases, we managed to pilot the services in a production-like system solution. It's very beneficial to set a pilot or demonstration where everything in the whole chain must work. And when you focus on real use cases, you need to go deep into the details, and that's where you learn what is technically possible. There are also different infrastructure solutions in different cities. We have learned a lot about traffic signals and the physical layout of intersections in different cities during this project. We have understood the need to have accurate position for each signal and stop line in a standardized way. And different cities have different strategies for traffic light control, as mentioned by Christina. In Copenhagen, the traffic lights we used for our demo were time controlled, whereas in Gothenburg, they were sensor controlled. Different traffic light control strategies affect the possibility to predict the traffic light phase shift and thereby the services. And finally, through the project, we have gained a common understanding that no one can create these services on their own. It is a collaborative effort. I'm now trying to change to the last slide. So we missed the last slide.
Oh. So okay. That was the last slide we had on our PowerPoint, so we have to do it verbally.
I'll do it without the slide then. Yes. So finally, if we look forward, I think that to get the services from pilot to production, there are some important parts that were identified during the project. We should acknowledge the work that the road owner may need to perform, update procurement specifications to support CITS equipped contractor vehicles, understand data sources and privacy issues for emergency vehicle information, and keep the focus on a standardized data exchange pattern for real-time data exchange cloud to cloud. We hope that these will be considered during the NordicWay 3 project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you will be part of it, so you can also make sure that that it will be part of that. So that's good. So thank you very much, both Christina and Stina. There we have you back. if we start, you both stress very much the importance of collaboration. And especially you, Christina, really clearly expressing a willingness to cooperate with industry and academia and so on. So, and that's of course really, really good, since cities are really fundamental in now the implementation that you are talking about, Stina. So we were thinking you pose also a lot of questions, Christina. For example, about the business models regarding data sharing, etc. So what do you think? I mean, you have a lot of data that you can share. And what are the main benefits for the cities administrations in sharing data with OEMs, for example?
Well, if we could share more data with the OEMs, we could definitely improve our services to transport users. And we could also streamline our operational and maintenance service, because then we could use the vehicles as sensors instead of expensive physical road, road equipment as we need to use now. And that that could make us much more efficient in our work if we could go for the car's sensors instead.
Yeah.
Thank you. If we look at the deployment of this, NordicWay 2 is trying to prepare for deployment, and NordicWay 3 is trying to take even the next step. But from the OEM side, Stina, if we have the say the public side, that kind of data and physical infrastructure in place, how fast do you think that from the OEM side, how fast can you roll out these services, and what kind of deployment rate are we looking at? Are we new vehicles only, or can we even backtrack a bit, or what would the situation be if we had, say, we had everything up and running today?
That's an interesting question. Basically, we could go live almost today, because we could say that we actually have this type of system already in production with connected safety. So we already have a possibility for the vehicles in our fleet that are connected to our cloud to send in that case, their friction estimations, and if they are approaching a slippery area, to receive information back. So if we had information from the infrastructure, we could use that channel to reach our vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Should we take the audience?
We can take a question from the audience.
Bring them in as well. Yes. We have a question from Aris Ramadan from Chalmers. So at the moment, how do you evaluate the demonstrations of your project? Is there any method or tool currently that you plan to use? And this is probably where academia can be involved. So could both of you could actually answer on that, I think.
Yes. For the NordicWay 2 project, we have had a few technical evaluations like latency, since this is a system solution with a lot of chain of data from the data source through an interchange node to the data consumer. It is a bit of a concern of the latency, so that we have checked, and it is clearly good enough, short enough for the services we have had in NordicWay 2. And when it comes to the effect, if that is the question, VTI made one simulator study for the emergency vehicle alert, and I think that they are planning to make more studies in the NordicWay 3 project.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Christina?
Well, when it comes to the turn to green function that we've been taking part in together with you, Stina, and Volvo Cars, then we have actually agreed on an evaluation model for that part, the prediction that is used for the turn to green. But of course, that is not science. It's just an agreement that we have with Volvo Cars that this is good enough. So, I mean, I would welcome any initiatives from was it Chalmers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Chalmers, yes.
Who could help us with these things, because we really, I think I know that RISE will drive these large-scale demonstrations in NordicWay 3, but I don't think we say no, thank you, if somebody wants to join and help us there. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, very good. An invitation to all researchers.
All
yes.
Come and join us. Yes.
Yeah.
We have another question from the audience from Håkan Olofsson, and it's going back to the ecosystems and business models that we talked about earlier as well. What type of player should host data servers for data sharing, exchange between different actors in real commercial deployments? I think that's a bit of the holy grail, but could we maybe have your view on that anyway? Should we start with Christina, maybe?
Well, that's exactly what it's all about. There are many different solutions, could be many different solutions, and we don't have the answer today, but I really hope we will solve it in NordicWay 3. I know there is a few new actors coming on too that I'm very interested in getting to know them, and I cannot answer that today. It's a good question that I can say.
What about Stina? Do you have an answer? Please.
No, I totally agree with Christina. We don't have an answer today, but we have worked with the ecosystem layout in NordicWay 2, and yeah, we will continue with this in NordicWay 3, I think.
Yes, and probably in many other
NordicWay 4 and
yes.
5.
No, but
yeah.
So yes,
probably
very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there's more interesting questions, but I think maybe we have to take them in emails or something afterwards, because looking at the time as well. So thank you both for this session. I was really enjoyed it, and we move on to the next session. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for organizing everything so well.
Thank you. And the next session is, if we change the slide, please. There.
No,
it's about the digital data platform and how that will work, both from a technical and practical point of view. And similar here, we have two speakers that will help us. So it's Björn Selander from Swedish Transport Administration and Kjell Persson from the Swedish Transport Administration. And similar as the previous session, we'll start with a short opening statement. So Björn will start, and then we'll welcome Kjell back, and he will take his opening statement. So we'll start with Björn now. Björn is technically responsible for the road IT infrastructure at the Swedish Transport Administration. And in NordicWay 3, he is the activity lead for the data exchange, interchange development, and international collaboration activity. So a big task at his hand there. Björn, please go ahead.
Thank you, Magnus, for that introduction. I would like to start to refer to Christina's presentation. She was talking about perspectives. And I think this will be kind of another perspective on the same kind of issues mentioned earlier. So, well, let's go ahead and see what I have to say to start with. I think Kjell is helping me with the slides.
Yes, but I can't get control, unfortunately.
No.
No.
You have the control now.
Yeah. To start with, in the Nordics, we have been sharing data from road authorities for a long time. The information from some of the Day One services is already online in open APIs and in the DataX channel. But there's a really big difference between the traditional traffic information service and the CITS services. The CITS services and the Day One services is actually aiming a lot more at driver assistance services and autonomous driving, and therefore the sharing of the data elaborates some of the requirements on the data exchange flows. I think you already put them forward. Yeah, I've chosen to highlight some of them. For example, if a car should react to a digital message about, for example, a roadwork warning, the car has to be really certain that the information received from the source is reliable and that the information is accurate. Even though it it's not the car which is acting, even if the scenario is the only advised for the driver, like a driving assistance. To drive the public opinion against automated driving, the service has to be very accurate and support the driver's decision making in a way that the driver trusts the information provided by the car. The driver should almost act autonomous to the information received, almost in the same manner or way, or as he is acting to the information surrounding him in the natural environment. This will gain the public trust in the technology and may help overcome some political constraints with regard to autonomous driving. These requirements drive the need to elaborate the. You can put forward one slide. Yeah. So key activities. Since I'm part of activity 3, I will talk a little bit of what we're planning to do in some of the key activities is IT security and regulations. And what actually we mean with IT security is that we have to find the public key infrastructure to support the trust chain in the data exchange. Also, when we talk about regulations, as I mentioned, it's really important that the information quality is high. So we need message definitions to make sure that the interpretation from the source from the producer to the consumer, that the information is not misinterpreted, because that could lead to dangerous traffic situations, and also the trust in the CITS services might fail. So what we're looking at in NordicWay 1 and 2, we have proven technologies for CITS services. Actually, at the point, there is different way of solving the same kind of services, and in Nordics we have investigated in the long-range communication for now. But there's quite a big different questions, bringing it from pilot services in a research environment, and now we're trying to put it closer to production in NordicWay 3. This means that we have to join traditionally quite separate ecosystems. I think Christina and also Stina mentioned this. I tried to explain what kind of ecosystems we have. We have the traditional road operators and road entrepreneurs. We have the traffic control centers and the traffic information providers. And now we also have the IT industry and the tele companies. And we have the vehicle and transport consumers, both private and commercial consumers. Since we're joining different ecosystems, those actors in those systems have this different responsibilities. And to create a new ecosystem, we need to realign those responsibilities. What is the responsibilities for the road authorities, for the OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers, and yeah, we have to solve those kind of issues. And I think that those questions were mentioned in the earlier presentation. The activities then we have to proceed with is more about, in a production environment, the field is not quite the same as in a research environment. In a real world scenario, we have laws, regulation, and business strategies, and also mentioned there before, we have financial circumstances that comes into play. In NordicWay 3, we have agreed on an intention to try to, at the end of the project, make the interchange network run on its own, not financed by the EU-financed resources. Therefore, we have to put an effort in negotiating and push forward how is this ecosystem supposed to work and who is responsible for each question. Yeah, you can proceed, Michelle. So what's in front of us from the Swedish Transport Administration perspective, we have two very good platforms where we can bring those questions and investigate them. Let's see. To keep my time, I keep it short. We have this presentation today is from NordicWay. NordicWay for us is a place where we can test and build knowledge. And also we can bring the entire ecosystem, those 4 ecosystems together, and bring us closer to development. But the knowledge we have gained in NordicWay, we can also use to try to harmonize in a collaborative mode with the rest of the EU. But that's actually where Kjell is supposed to tell us a little bit more. So I welcome you.
Thank you, Björn, and good afternoon, everyone. As Björn mentioned, there are a lot of collaboration, and we heard a lot about collaboration in the Nordic countries. And I'm going to talk a little more about the collaboration in the European mode. So C-Roads is a collaboration between 16 member states, and there are also several different associated members. And the focus for C-Roads is to implement these CITS services that you now heard a lot about. And the goal is to make sure that that there exists harmonized specification for cross-border information exchange. The idea is that if you have a car, vehicle from, for example, Germany or Spain, it should be possible to receive the same kind of standardized services if you're driving in France or Italy. So we have then in C-Roads developed these harmonized specifications for interoperability. The specifications in C-Roads cover both short range and the long range communication. The short range, now ITS G5, has been ongoing for quite a long time. But 2.5 years ago, we started the Task Force 4, it's called, in C-Roads, which also then deals with the specifications for long-range cellular communication. And that's also called hybrid communication in C-Roads. When we started to look at the different pilots, because we started with NordicWay is one of many pilots all over Europe, and we started looking and mapping all these different services and pilots that were available. For example, apart from NordicWay, you have Scoop and Intercore that also are having pilots. And we saw that there are several different implementation models in the different European pilots. I will not go through all the technical details, but what you can see is that you have a combination of both connected vehicles through cellular networks or short range, and they can be controlled by both road traffic authorities or OEM clouds. So there was a great deal of combinations that we saw that we needed to harmonize. So what we could harmonize on was the standards for backend communication. So in this case, this is then the circle that you see up in this slide. This is where we have now developed harmonized specifications for backend information exchange. And the specification then is called CITS IP-based interface profile. And what is mandatory in this specification, if you want to participate in the information exchange between countries, is what we call basic interface. It has been mentioned before. You also then have an optional interface called improved interface, to be able to automate and bring on a lot more services in a quicker manner. But so these are the specifications that are available today, and test will start soon start in the basic interface, and then we will go on with test for improved interface. And that concludes my slides.
Thank you, Kjell.
Okay.
And of course, I forgot that the two of you were doing a joint presentation, so I forgot to introduce you, Kjell. So here it comes, your introduction. Kjell Persson works in the Swedish Transport Administration, and he has a background in cellular communication. He participates in C-Roads Cooperation and is currently chair of Task Force 4, which is responsible to develop specifications for hybrid cellular communications. So now we know who you are as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And there we have both Björn and Kjell in picture. Perfect. And we would like to start to ask you, since you both represent the Swedish Transport Administration, which role and responsibility do you see as the most important one as a road authority? We can start with, well, you can fight on who wants to start, but otherwise I will say Kjell to make it easier.
Great. I would say that the important part is to drive this ecosystem to be a part of establishing business flows and make it possible to have a commercial ecosystem with a lot of different providers. What we see, and this model that we have established with OEMs communicating with the vehicles, it's really impossible then for the transport administration to take all these roles in ecosystem. But we need, I think, to help as much as possible to establish this ecosystem. How that can be done is a very difficult question, of course, but I do think we can play an important part in that.
Yes.
What would you say, Björn?
Yeah, you kind of answered the way I wanted to answer it, but then I take another perspective. At the Swedish Transport Administration, we have the position of being in like C-Roads and other EU harmonizing projects, and I think it's important for us to participate in NordicWay and bringing those issues and up to an EU level, and that's actually what you are doing more than me. But I think that's an important part from our side.
Yeah. Perfect.
In C-Roads, we are working with bringing in experiences not only from NordicWay, but also from all over Europe to be able to have this harmonized specification. So yes, it's an important part for the collaboration, and hopefully the services that are now provided in the NordicWay can also be provided all over Europe.
Mm. Yes, perfect. And do you agree all the time in these discussions among the European countries?
Or within the Swedish Transport Administration, for that matter.
No, nor in the Swedish Transport Administration, nor in C-Roads. We do not always agree. As I mentioned before, when we started, there were already a lot of different pilots running. There were a lot of different ideas, implementations. So there has been a lot of discussions, but since everyone do want to achieve this collaboration and exchange of information, we have been able to resolve all those technical details that we have been discussing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You agree with that as well, Björn?
Yeah. I would like to also bring into picture that Stina's and Kristina's presentation earlier. I think we see the same issues in the NordicWay consortia, and it's very promising for the next step in the NordicWay project.
Mm.
You didn't mention how the work is in that part of the community, but it looks very promising. I would like to mention that.
Mm.
We have a couple of questions from the audience. We have one from Henrik Segersen at the Volvo Cars, which I think is a really good question. What impact do you see that the work in NordicWay has had on other EU countries? Are we leaders or followers?
I would say that we have been able to contribute quite a lot since the ideas on this information exchange And for example, the interchange that has been discussed before is now also part of the zero specification. I do believe that we have been able to contribute, but also other pilots have had the same kind of technical solution, for example, like the AMQP protocol for data exchange. So that was part of several of the other pilots, and that was also good base to build on this development for the future and the specifications. So.
I think that NordicWay has been a really success story, bringing the Nordic countries in the discussion about harmonization and about CITS. I got an email actually yesterday. I think it's CCAM, another European collaboration platform, that actually mentioned in their papers the NordicWay project, and they call it the EF2, which is actually the interchange specifications.
Yes, and what we experience in Drive Sweden, that also speaking about collaboration and the Swedish model, we get a lot of attention for that. So I think both in NordicWay, where we have had this quite close collaboration among all these actors, developed solutions together, that is a quite unique thing seen from a European perspective, working so closely between industry and society. So that's really something to build on also for the future. And there is also a question from my colleague Josephine Darlington. So speaking about harmonization, how important is the triple helix perspective or the collaboration to achieve this? Bringing in, researchers, society and industry.
I think we need all perspective, otherwise we will miss the goal. It's quite important that we have the knowledge from the academia, and that we also have the industry and maybe the financial parts and the commercial part of this side, and also we need the authorities and the regulations part. I think we will miss the goal if we don't make this a joint effort.
It's such a complex ecosystem, and there are so many possible use cases and services that can be provided. So it's really impossible for any single part to solve all this. So yes, we need a close cooperation between all different parts of society.
Can I ask then from your perspective, in terms of implementing and deployment, what would you say are from your perspective, the main driving forces and maybe also the main limitations? What do you see at this stage?
And you mean going from a kind of research environment until a production environment? Production of
connected vehicles and services.
Yeah, and that was almost the holy grail question.
Holy grail.
Last time.
Back to that.
Yeah, maybe you should try to start with.
Yeah, what I would say the important part to solve is really the communication with the vehicles. As I mentioned, what we have specified so far is the back-end communication, and it's the OEMs that communicate with the vehicles. That is one important part to really solve in this ecosystem. And then how should the security and trust be established for this information back-end exchange? That is another important part. For example, should it be the interchange nodes that should be responsible, and which kind of actors should be allowed to connect to this ecosystem? I think these are important parts for the deployment.
Yeah, as you said, the last point, that was part of my presentation. I think trust is a really important issue. Since we're talking different ecosystems, we use different public key infrastructure. Swedish Transport Administration, we're not only using this kind of infrastructure, security infrastructure for only roadside. We have also the järnväg railroad system, and that those are not harmonized. So it's not that easy to solve. And the cities, they not only work with roads, they work with other kind of digitalizations. So we have to find a way with the trust in the system. I think that's really a key issue, bringing it closer to development to production.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Should we have the last question from the audience as well? It's a tough one. Let's see. Let's see if you can answer it. It's from Håkan Olofsson. Says it may be a difficult question. It says the majority of the 100,000 kilometers in EU is covered by long-range LTE. Could you elaborate on the 6,000 kilometers of CITS equipment? Where will it be and who would finance that? I'm not sure which CITS equipment he refers to, but maybe you have an answer.
I imagine that it refers to the roadside units, as it's called. There has been deployments in, for example, France and Austria. I'm not updated on the actual status of those projects, but I do know that they have deployed a lot of roadside units. So the numbers mentioned there refers to both the roadside ITS G5 equipment and then the LTE cellular networks. But the thing that we have been discussing in C-Roads is that going for only short range will not be a viable solution in most countries. And specifically in the Nordic countries, it was decided to go mainly for cellular networks. And cellular networks will always be a complement to this communication in practically all countries, I would say. And that is then the hybrid communication model that we're talking about in C-Roads.
Okay, you're looking at me, Magnus. I think Kjell made a great answer.
Yeah. So no further comments from your side.
No.
No, it's a very interesting topic, of course, that we probably could discuss
a lot
longer from many different perspectives. But thank you very much for that. I think we should move on.
That one as well.
Yes, we have one last question for you before we go into the final panel. From Henrik Segersten at Volvo Cars, how long until we have a Swedish and then European interchange network for production use?
Yeah, as I mentioned this one I would like to start with, Michelle, if it's okay. As I mentioned, we have the intention to have at least decided on, it's not decided yet if we should have one national interchange node or if we should have different for every cities and so on. And that's part of the NordicWay 3 project. And during that process and that work, hopefully we also find ways how it should be supported on its own, financially and so on. That's a high intention, but it's only not my intention, it's the entire project. So I hope at the end of the project that we at least have some idea. But it's hard to see what kind of issues we will run into during the upcoming years. That's the Nordic part, at least. Maybe Kjell, you can talk about the European.
From a C-Roads perspective, there are no decisions to develop the interchange nodes. There's a lot of interest, I would say, a lot of discussions, but testing will start now in the spring with basic interface to basic interface communication. For the improved interface, which involves the interchange nodes, that has not been decided from any European country to my knowledge yet. As I said, a lot of discussions and interest, and hopefully we will be able to have interchange nodes interconnected between European countries, but I would say that that would take a couple of years at least.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of years at least. We'll write that down in the minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's cool also that there will be some things to do in NordicWay 3 as well.
It will be, and both Kjell and Björn will continue in NordicWay 3 and 0, so I think we will see and hear more of you in the future. But for today, unfortunately, we need to say goodbye and move on to the next item on the agenda. So thank you, Björn and Kjell, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving into the final and concluding panel for this session today. And NordicWay is a collaboration project in a Nordic context, but of course, collaboration will be important on many levels, on EU and internationally. And we have already touched upon it, and we will discuss this even more now in this session. So in this part, we will listen to Per-Einar Pedersli, Jonny Svedlund, Eva Boetius, and Arne Lindeberg. And we will start with Per-Einar, who is already there. He's a senior engineer in the Norwegian Public Road Administration, and he's also the project coordinator of NordicWay 2. So warm welcome, and we look forward to hearing your words.
Thank you. So I hope this will work cross border, as NordicWay 2 have focus on. Okay, I will see it at the Norwegian Public Road Administration perspective, why we have joined this kind of projects. First of all, I will tell you about our high-level strategic goals, which is in these bullet points. First of all, it will provide us with the new knowledge that will make our organization more stronger and professional. This is very important when we are working with the ITS, because the new technology and new services is changing at very high speed. So new knowledge is a very important issue. And of course, it will provide better coordination of cross-border plans, projects, and transport in the Nordic region. We do have a lot of cross-border activities, both at private and commercial levels within the transport sector, so we need to collaborate. And the third point is that we shall contribute to regulatory development, both inside Norway and also influence on fulfilling obligations to implement EU regulations. So this is the three most highlighted strategic goals for Norwegian collaboration in international projects. And so what is the contribution to NordicWay 2 concerning these goals? About knowledge, by collaboration, we will manage to handle big ITS projects efficiently and to ensure that we got the knowledge and exchange knowledge. By sharing our knowledge and best practice, competence is building, and this pays really off. Lack of competence within our organization could be a barrier for further development, so this is important. And NordicWay project goals match our need for new knowledge, such as focus on challenges within winter conditions. About the collaboration within the Nordic countries, this goal we have had many years of collaboration, at least 25 years we have been working together. And I guess Arne have been joining this project for a long time. And we support each other whenever needed. And we also share workload, because this is big projects and need a lot of resources. And the NordicWay projects are very good examples of how to work and find solutions across different nations. There is a need for coordination and harmonization of common services, and we do have common understanding due to this long-term cooperation. And we are proud to say that all decisions are based on consensus in the project management board meetings. We organize 4 project management boarding meetings annually, and we have good and constructive discussions inside the PMB. And then finally, about the regulations. We have talked about that we are getting a stronger voice together, a common Nordic voice. This is important for the Nordic countries, and we like to say that we have a good international standing as a unit. I think we also was named that the sea roads, we have a lot of involvement there, and we have, as I say, a good standing And we also think that we have significant impact on EC development. An example of that is the development of the Interchange Federation and the Nordic services. So this was a short introduction about why Norwegian Public Road Administration take part in this kind of projects. So this ends my presentation.
Thank you, Per-Einar. Thank you for the introduction from the Norwegian Public Roads Administration side. We'll continue with opening statements from Jonny Svedlund and Eva Boetius. And if I'm correctly informed, they will do a joint presentation. I suppose we would see them on the screen anytime now. Jonny Svedlund is a senior advisor at Swedish Transport Administration and has 25 years experience in the field of ITS. And in NordicWay 2, he has been coordinating the work with the Swedish pilots. And he will tell us a bit about NordicWay 3, what's happening there. And then we also have Eva Boetius, who has 20 years of experience of research and development in the area of ITS. She has also worked in the European Commission for more than 10 years and been highly involved in the history and creation of NordicWay since the beginning. And in the NordicWay project, she is supporting Arne Lindeberg in the management of the project. And she will tell us a bit more about European cooperation. So, Jonny, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And good afternoon and welcome to the Borlänge studio. There's been a lot of talk about NordicWay 3 here lately, and I will start to talk a little bit about NordicWay 3. And it's obviously, as you can see, the same countries as in NordicWay 2, but we have a lot more implementing bodies. 35 as it is today, and that is almost 3 times as many as there were in NordicWay 2. So there will be a large need for cooperation to include all the new parties. And the project will end in 2023, so approximately 3 years from now we will probably have a showcase, so you can save the date for that. And what we will hopefully show at that time is that we have included more cities, more users, more vehicles, and hopefully more OEMs as well. And as you might all be aware of, as Shell spoke about, not all parties and countries share the same picture of CITS, and that is something that we in NordicWay 2, the cooperation has brought us together and have a more shared view in many fields now. And the aim in NordicWay 3 is obviously to continue on this cooperation. We have in the planning of NordicWay 3 included more stakeholders from the whole value chain, and this is with the aim of providing a common Nordic market and hopefully avoid local solutions that we heard about earlier in NordicWay 2. And in order to achieve this, we launched also the expression flagship pilots. And those are, as you can see at the bottom here, geofencing, traffic signals, roadworks warning, and emergency vehicle approaching. And if you join us this morning, you can see they're almost the same. But what I would like to point out is geofencing here, that is the service that really has the largest potential for traffic safety and might also be a must for future automatic vehicles. And there we will focus on existing regulations. And in this way, we will set up the ecosystem and the value chains for all the coming other regulations. We will, however, also include the future solutions. And as Per-Einar from Norway just said, that dynamic regulation development is also important. yeah, that was what I would like to my introduction statement. Thank you.
Okay, I continue. Good afternoon, everyone. I realize that I am the last speaker, so I will be short and to the point. And with its last session, it addresses the international collaboration, and I would start by stating the obvious, that cooperation is key. It simply cannot be stressed enough that the rollout of CITS is a joint effort between many different stakeholders. And in this context, the NordicWay project has proven to be a solid and well-established network since the beginning, which was back in 2015. And as my colleague Jonny just explained, NordicWay is now stepping up the work that has already been done and carried out in NordicWay 1 and 2. And the collaboration which we see between public and private partnerships in Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and Norway paves the way for a common understanding and competence sharing, which is not to be underestimated. And to summarize what we heard this morning, you could say that we have seen real progress in the area of coordination and harmonization of different services, sharing of knowledge, continuous sharing of knowledge and best practice. And at least to some extent, we have been able to share workload as well. And we have also seen that it is a strength to be numerous in terms of different stakeholders and participating members in the project. And by having this numerous approach and common approach, we have become a voice in an international context and also very much so on the European arena. And well, I would like to mention, which has been said before, that this is a project which is funded under the Connecting Europe Facility program, commonly known as CEF. And it has been managed during all these years by our professional colleagues in INEA, which is the Innovation and Network Executive Agency in Brussels. And we are very much appreciated to follow the guidance of the European Commission when it comes to policy. But we've also appreciated to provide useful results and conclusions from NordicWay 1 and 2, and we will certainly continue to do so in NordicWay 3. And we believe that this has been a very useful and appreciated input to the important discussions which goes on in Europe about what common next steps to take in this area. We are also well aware that there are still questions that needs to be answered, especially when it comes to roles and responsibilities and potential agreements between different stakeholders. And this is also while we are operating in a rapidly changing environment, which is highly digital. And as a final note, I would just like to say that I think it's safe to say that we are all proud of the cooperation that we have established, and it's been very useful. And I think we are ready to consider further cooperation and new challenges. And this might be highly relevant since the new CEF call is about to be launched. But there are also several other relevant European initiatives in this important area of CITS that will come for the next couple of years. So I think all in all, the network and the arena for the important discussions is well placed in the family of NordicWay. So with this, I would just like to thank you all for the joint effort in making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. for this input. Very interesting. And you can stay online, and we will also invite the other speakers, Arne and Per-Einar, to connect again. We'll see if there's Arne as well. And we thought, welcome back, Arne, we should say.
Thank you.
First of all, since you haven't reflected yet in this panel, we thought we would like to ask you, since you've been here not only all day, but also the whole Nordic Way. So, I mean, how far have we got today? I mean, what did you foresee then when you started, and how does that relate to where we are today? Could you just reflect just shortly on that?
Well, I could speak a long time about that, but I will not do that. But I think what I try also to say in the beginning is that it's not only the technical results, which is actually impressive, I would say, but it's also the platform or the cooperation itself, both with national, but also now between Nordic countries, and to some also the European country between European countries that was mentioned by Kjell earlier. So I think that we have reached surprisingly far, and there's a little bit different setups in the Nordic countries in relation to industry for several reasons. But in Sweden, all parties are also there are so-called implementing bodies due to the European regulation, which means that you cover your own cost and you get access to European funding in relation to your, let's say, part of the project plan or your contribution to the project. And I would say this is very, very funny, or it's very, very interesting to be allowed to be part of this project. And it's a little bit pity that one has to retire somewhere, but I will gradually fade away. But I think we have, as I said earlier, some more filled in that. I think we all can be a little bit proud of what we have achieved so far. And we also have a paved way forward, also mentioned because NordicWay is already ongoing. And there is, I would say, also fairly good, described by Eva, possibilities for the future. Let's say the support from the European Commission or an interest for also improving the transport system, it will be an important facilitator for the future. That was a short version.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And you know, there are always room for senior advisors. So, I mean, no worries.
You can fade away over a long period of time. Good. There's a lot of questions that come in throughout the day, which is both technical, but maybe also a bit on policy, which is about the combination cellular and roadside equipment. And we touched upon that in various discussions, both technical and with Kjell and Björn as well. But maybe it could be interesting to have a more high-level view, maybe from both Sweden and Norway. The combination cellular roadside, there's a technical question, so how many roadside units and where do you need to use them and so on. Could we have a short statement or kind of your view on this matter?
Who is to start, me or Per-Einar?
We start in Norway, back all the way up in Trondheim.
Okay. Difficult and political question. So, but in Norway, we at this moment we focus a lot on cellular technology, and many of our pilots is based on that kind of technology. But at the same time, we have a close cooperation with the industry in G5 development. So we have both goals to have the both kind of technology implemented in the future, but what will be the major technology? Well, time will show. Yeah, I think that's the word from Norway.
Is it okay, Johnny, that I start and then you, Johnny, Eva, and you fill in?
Yeah,
I
sure.
would say, because that was part of my initial presentation, that this was a strategic decision already in the beginning when we realized that given, if you look at the map, given both the area and the topography of the Nordic Scandinavian countries, a full-scale rollout of roadside installation was a very, very tricky engagement. And therefore, NordicWay was born. And as I said in my presentation, this is really twofold, because where you normally should start a rollout of short range would have been, let's say, the major roads in connection with the bigger cities and so on. It's very questionable how far we actually would have got with a full-scale short range commitment. So and the other aspect of that is looking at the road network. Let's say we have a considerable amount of freight transport also in the rural areas, which there was potential services also to support, also to make a better use of the road network available. The whole range of potential services. So I think all in all, and it is of course it's a cost issue as well, led to the strategy that we will try to, as far as possible, rely on cellular networks, which also, what I mentioned in my slide, has some other advantages. But this is not religious. If there are situations where we need to rely also on short range, of course we will do. And there was some cases. There was one case described already by Anders from Paya from Capsch. This is one example that where we also have done short range. So, but the whole idea is to try to, as the main initiative, go on long range, and then we will fill in with whatever is technically necessary. Johnny, Eva, was that a good answer, or do you need to fill in?
Well, I can fill in a little bit. If you heard Anders Fagerholt this morning, he talked about smartphones, and if you look at it today, most vehicles sold today are connected, and almost all vehicles today have a smartphone in them. So the services we are providing through cellular reach a whole lot more numbers of users and vehicles than we would today with short range communication. And we at the Transport Administration, we reason like if we can get the benefit out of it, short range communication, we will of course use it. But considering the number of vehicles that can receive these messages, we are not there today.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we will have one question from the audience, which I will reformulate to make it a bit short answer from you, and then one final question from Magnus that will summarize it all. So the question is from Torgeir Wahr from Norwegian Public Road Administration. His question is, what are the barriers for a full-scale implementation of CITS services, and how do you look upon the timeline? So I will reformulate that into, what is the main barrier for a full-scale implementation? And you can answer by about one word or one sentence each. Okay, we can start with Eva. Did you get it?
Yes, I got the question. I think I will just go back to what I stated earlier, that, well, unfortunately, I cannot put it in one word, but I do still believe that there is some work to be done in order to reach a common understanding, and very much so when it comes to roles and responsibilities. And here the role of the road operators and the public administrations are one piece of the puzzle which still needs to be clarified.
Yes, thank you. And Johnny?
Well, when it comes to services, of course, this would since we're aiming at communicating with the vehicles, this we talked about earlier with trust and quality and cybersecurity is of course something we need to solve.
Yep. Thank you. Per-Einar?
I think that from the evaluation of the ecosystems, many of the industry said that we need a really driving force, and that I think the national road administrations could be that who pushes these systems into their deployment. Yeah, I think we need some strong organization to really push it forward.
Yeah. And Arne, finally.
I say as Eva is more than one sentence, but in short, I would say from an administration perspective, I think unfortunately the main challenge is really regulations and mandating of administration. The latter one is easier to solve, but legislation is actually 50 to 100 years old sometimes, and it was never designed for a digitalized transport system. And we all know that this is also, unfortunately, these are aspects that if you can't work, if you need to do changes in legislation, that takes time. And therefore, I think that's number one on my barrier list or risk list, so to say, because there will be limitations that we can do a lot of things, but we also have to secure that we actually are allowed to do them.
Yeah, thank you. So that was that on the barrier side, I think.
Barriers.
Yes.
Then we're going to look even more into the future, ask you to be a bit clairvoyant. In 2023, when we're having this NordicWay 3 showcase, hopefully live with a lot of people around us, possibly digital as well, who will know. Looking back at NordicWay 3 then, what do you think we'll have achieved by then, and what do you think we will be most proud of? Who wants to start? Who can tell the future best? Then I'll ask up in Borlänge, John Eva.
Well, since we're aiming for these flagship pilots to create a Nordic market, I would like to hope that achieving this would be something we would be most proud of, to have implemented and used services and not only pilots.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with that, but I would also like to see from a transport administration point of view, what does this mean in terms of bringing it into our own planning procedures, and how can we slowly but surely make this part of our normal and regular planning and process in order to compare it with other measures. And in order to do so, we also need to understand costs and benefits and all these other issues which we are currently and will continue to look at in NordicWay 3. So I hope it's a bit more implemented in the transport administration.
That's good. Some internal work as well. Per-Einar.
Well, I have of course the same thought as Johnny and Eva, and hopefully we could show that the deployed services within NordicWay 3 gives really benefits for the transport systems. I'll evaluate on real cases and real situations.
Okay. And Arne, you said you're fading out. Will you be faded out by 2023, or will you be on stage? What will you be proud of?
That's part of the plan, but hopefully I can still be an observer. I think we all, as we said earlier, have reason to, also of NordicWay 3, have reason to be proud of the cooperation as such, what we have achieved together. Then I would say that what we actually are providing, we will have provided and increased, because this type of exercise is actually part of that awareness of the potential in new digital services, because we are actually providing the tools for redesigning the transport system for a future society. And I think that's good enough reason to be a little bit proud when it comes to the end of NordicWay 3 as well.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you very much for being part of this last panel and for summarizing it also well. And we will leave you there and just make some short conclusions from our side. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
But if I just may say so, on behalf of all the audience from Transport Administration, a big thanks to you, Sophie, and to Magnus for a very good job today. Brilliant, well carried out.
It's all thanks to our excellent technicians and and our coordinators around us as well. So thanks to them as well. Thank you. Well, I mean, Magnus, it's not very easy to summarize such a day, is it?
Not at all.
But I think, and we won't be very long, but just some short words then. We've heard this morning how important it is to test technology in real environments, and this is crucial that we keep testing and pilot new solutions because it's really when doing so that you can run into the concrete challenges and problems that we need to solve. And it's really impressive to see the results that have been developed within NordicWay 2. But it has also been stressed in several of the sessions, the perspective of the business models, the society, the end users, and to involve these perspectives in the development of the future solutions so that they go in line with the societal goals and also that the society can enable for the new services in the future in a good way. There have also been discussions about the roles and responsibilities when it comes to sharing of data, digitalization, which is something totally different. And last but not least, collaboration between large and small companies, academia, societal actors will be even more important in the future, and also cross borders. And this Nordic collaboration is, of course, an excellent example of how it also can take some time and how it can develop and deepen and you build trust over a long period, which has been very successful. So I look forward also to contribute to this work from Drive Sweden, and let's keep doing this together.
And we will keep doing it because even though this is the showcase of the Swedish pilot, it doesn't really end here. We're not done. The NordicWay 2 project goes on until the end of this year. The NordicWay 3 project has already started, so we're trying to make a nice switch from 2 to 3 here. At this stage right now in NordicWay 2, we're working hard on presenting and reporting, and there's a lot of deliverables coming up and so on. So all of you, please stay tuned. You have here the web address to the NordicWay website, which is both for NordicWay 2 and NordicWay 3, and I would suspect NordicWay 4 when we get there. You can find, as we said earlier, all the films there. You can find all the contact details to the speakers and so on. In a couple of days, maybe, we will have the whole showcase up there as well, so you can look at it over and over again if you want to. But also, we can find information there on the next upcoming event in NordicWay, which is the Norwegian showcase, which is next Thursday, if I'm correct. And on the NordicWay website, you can find how to register and report for that event. So that's what's coming up next. I hope you all enjoyed today. I have enjoyed this a lot for the first time in the studio. It was really fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But I think that's all we had for us today. So thank you all for listening and have a nice weekend.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.